Okay, a very good morning once again. Thank God is a new day God has given unto us. Today, I want to continue from where I stopped yesterday. Yesterday, I talked about basic concept you can employ to understand physics and what will help you as a student, as a learner, or a beginner in physics. And I established three major things, though I further reclassify them in seven places. I established that for you to understand, know the basic concept in physics, you need a combination of a theoretical knowledge, and you also need the knowledge of mathematical skills, and you need to also need the knowledge of applications, practical applications. These were the three basic things established yesterday in my last video. And today I also further said that for you to understand this, you need to follow some steps. And the first steps there is for you to understand the basic, which is the fundamental in physics. And of course, we mentioned something like motions, force, energy, and so on. So, today's lesson, I want to take us to mechanics, which is the theoretical basics, the theoretical knowledge about physics. You know, the reason why students are struggling because they do not take this thing bit by bit. And of course, if you are my students online or offline, I try to establish the basic. And all the students over the years, they don't struggle. They see physics to be very one of the simplest subjects ever because I have established that basic concept and they understand it step by steps and they can apply it anytime. So today I want to look at the general mechanics, which is the general physics, and the theoretical aspect, the theoretical knowledge, what you can make up from physics. So the first we want to look at is the physical quantities and its unit, the physical quantities. By the way, every quantities that we have in physics are all physical. Every quantity in physics are called what? Physical quantities. And when you want to look at it, what do we mean by a physical quantities? A physical quantities are those quantities that describe the properties of objects possessed for which methods of measurement exist. That is those quantities that can be measurable. That is a simple definition. In case you feel you try to misunderstand or you don't get it right, you just look at a physical quantities as any quantity that is measurable. That means measurement do exist in a physical quantities. So it is a quantity that is measurable, just like I said before. Examples we have like length, we have mass, we have time, velocity, momentum. These are all physical word quantities. And every physical quantity is always expressed as a product of its numerical value and a unit. Every physical quantities are always expressed as a product of its numerical values and its units. It therefore means, for instance, if someone is asking you what is the length of your door, and you said 2, it doesn't make sense. But if you said 2 meters, you have offered what? You have offered explanations. That tells you that you are talking about what? The length. So every physical quantity will always accompany with numerical value and its unit. So if I said, someone asking you, what is it by the time? And you said the time is 2, it does not make any sense. But if you said the time is 2 o'clock, you have given the informations. Okay? So you can notice that the 2 is a numerical value, while the o'clock, which is if it is AM or PM, that is what the units. And of course, the time in science is basically measured in second in terms of basic quantities. So you can now notice that every quantities that we have in physics are all physical quantities. So as we are moving further, we are going to break it down and looking at the classes of the physical quantities. So physical quantities are classified into 2. The physical quantities are classified into 2. Number 1 is fundamental quantities. You can also call it basic quantities. Remember, my aim is to establish the theoretical knowledge of physics. That will help you to move to the next steps that we mentioned. I said, I'm going to take this, I'm going to attack it A, B, C in physics so that you understand the concept in physics, you won't have a problem. So if you have a brothers, sisters, you have a sons and daughters who is struggling to understand the physics, this video is actually for you. This video is to enhance you. This video is to help you growing in knowledge, okay, of physics. So please, it is very, very important. So you have to share this. You don't need to keep this for yourself. I know. As long as you are a student and you are learning science, physics is the integral part of science. So you can't do without physics. So it is very, very important. That's SS1 or that JS1, JS2, JS3. They are about going to SS1. Who want to study? Who is going to do physics in the senior secondary? It is very, very important. Okay, that you have to learn this. So I said we have basically 2 classes of physical quantities. That means physical quantity can be classified into 2. The first one is what we call the fundamental physical quantities. Fundamental physical quantities. You can also call it basic quantities, or you call it primary quantities. It's like primary school. Okay, you can't go to secondary school without primary school. It's the basic of every education. If you like be a professor, you must have passed through a primary school. So the fundamental physical quantities are very important quantities. And that's why we say is a quantity that are not defined or expressed in terms of other quantities. That means every other quantity depends on the primary quantities or fundamental quantities. So I can define the fundamental quantities as the quantities that are not defined or expressed in terms of other physical quantities. That is what we mean by a fundamental physical quantities. Now, examples of them, we have length, we have mass, we have time, we have electric current, we have amount of substance, we have luminous intensity. These are the basic fundamental quantities. The basic fundamental quantity for those of you that are in secondary school at least we have 7 fundamental quantities that you need to know. So if you must understand physics concepts, you need to understand the fundamental physical quantities. The first one is length, second is mass, third is time, the next is electric current, temperature, luminous intensity, and amount of substance. These are the fundamental physical quantities. Now, I am building what? A foundation. So I'm not in the haste to cover everything. If you are in school in a week, everything will be joined and you just get yourself confused. You don't even know what to do. But since I'm here for you as a foundational teacher, what do? I need to bisect them precept by precept, one after the other. So I want you to understand today, at least you have to go home with, you need to know the meaning of physical quantity. And I say physical quantities are those quantities that describe the properties of object which measurement exists. That means it's a quantities that is measurable. So physical quantities are quantities that are what? Are measurable. And we mentioned example of these physical quantities like length, mass, times, velocity, momentum, and others. And we also said that physical quantities can always be expressed as a product of its numerical value and its units. That means every physical quantity has a value and the units. So if you have 2 and seconds, you have 2 seconds. That is the measurement of a physical quantities. The 2 is a numerical value, while the x, which is this in seconds, is the unit of what? Time. That tells you that you are talking about what? Time. And we also said, for emphasis sake, we also said that classes of physical quantity, that physical quantity can be fundamental physical quantity and it can be derived physical quantity. So our lesson today will just stop at the physical fundamental quantities. So we said fundamental quantities because they are also what? Primary quantity. They can also be called basic quantities. So the next class, I am going to look at the derived physical quantities. Thank you very much.